All right, let's recap now what's been happening. Israel's most recent attacks on high-rise apartment buildings in Gaza City began on Friday when it bombed the Mushtaha Tower, once a prominent landmark where about 20 families lived. Just 700 meters away was the 12-story Soussi Tower. It had about 75 apartments. And the latest Israeli strike is on the al-Ruya Tower, a 5-story building with 24 units, as well as department stores, a clinic and a gym. All of these buildings in close proximity to one another. Amjad Shawa is the director of the Palestinian NGOs network, joins us from Gaza City. He's very close to the residential tower that was hit. And we understand you're just 3 kilometers away from the al-Ruya Tower that's been under Israeli threat and has now been bombed. Amjad, good to have you with us. So just talk us through the sort of psychological pressure and impact of this constant cycle that's developing now of threats from the Israeli military occupation on some of these high-rise buildings and then their destruction.
Thank you. It's trouble now. The situation is scary. There is panic amongst the people, and mainly these people who were staying in these buildings, mainly al-Ruya one, and also before this attack on al-Ruya, there was also an attack on one of the biggest sites for people, displaced people, which is the Jazeera club land, which is also, there was big number of tents there, was airstriken by the Israelis, and so many tents were destroyed. So we're talking about today, other hundreds of families lost their shelters. And this is kind of an Israeli aiming in order to forcibly displace people to the south area using these explosions. Although that everyone knows that there is no safe place in the south, there is no humanitarian zone, there is nothing that people could be pushed or pressured in order to go to the south. People are still in the western part of Gaza City, and all these towers and these high buildings, which under the Israeli attacks in the western part of Gaza, which is overwhelmed by the IDPs and their tents. So I'm not talking about the building itself, but about the neighborhood, where it's overwhelmed by, crowded by tents and by the displaced people. And this is the Israeli intention in order to destroy how much they can through these airstrikes towards these high buildings.
Amjad, you head a network of Palestinian NGOs. Just tell us what this sort of pattern of attacks, how hard does it make it for Palestinian NGOs to try and get out into streets which may now be clogged with rubble? You know, just how much harder it makes it for NGOs to try and help the people?
Just to inform you, this morning, one of the colleague NGOs, the Aisha Association for Women and Child Protection, was attacked by Israeli rocket, where 3 people were killed. One of them, the NGO staff, and there was a pregnant woman who was coming in order to get medical treatment, and in the same time there was a child less than 5 years who was in the yard. So the case is here that the NGOs, the same of the people, we are part of the social fabric here, and we are under attack as a humanitarian agencies in order to eliminate our capacity not to deliver services, and our capacity is getting limited every day because of the Israeli restrictions on the entry of basic needs and supplies to the Gaza Strip, mainly to Gaza City, whilst the shelter materials is not entered yet. Only 400 to 500 tents allowed to enter, whilst we need for 350,000 tents. About the food, what have been entered, it's only 10% of the needs. So our capacity to respond, it's became limited, but we are with the people in there. Wherever they are, we are with the people delivering the services according to our capacity, which is getting less and less day by day.
Amjad, the contrast right now of talking about Gaza compared to other hotspots. Just before we came to you, I was interviewing a guest where we were talking about what's happening in Ukraine. In a situation maybe elsewhere in the world where you have a building come under attack, there are emergency services to respond. There are even, in the case of Ukraine, powerful Western allies who will send help and assistance and defense systems, as well as support for emergency crews to help and deal with the aftermath. Nothing of that exists for the people of Gaza, right?
It's double standards from the international community towards what's going on in Gaza. The international community failed in order to pressure Israel to respect the international law and the international humanitarian law, to protect the civilians. Until now, what we are witnessing from the international community, only statements. With these statements, nothing changed on the ground. We need actions. If there will be no actions, Israel will continue its genocide crimes on the Palestinian civilians, on the children. Although that more than 2 weeks of the declaration of famine on Gaza Strip, we didn't witness any real pressure on Israel to lift the blockade, to protect aid workers, to protect the UN and the international organizations in order to make them work in Gaza. Till now, there is constraints and restrictions on their work, and there is attacks on them. Until now, I can say there is more and more deterioration, and there is kind of escalation from the Israeli side on Gaza Strip. If there will be no accountability, real accountability on Israel and sanctions, Israel will continue its military operations, which is completely against the international law. It's kind of complicit, while is the American administration fully support the Israeli and justify all the crimes committed against the civilians.
Thank you very much, Amjad Shawa, there, for sharing your thoughts and perspective of what's happening. You're just 3 kilometers away from that latest tower that was hit. Amjad Shawa from the Palestinian NGOs network.
Don't miss out. Get the full picture. Subscribe to Al Jazeera for reliable news and expert insights. Like, share, stay ahead.